Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is the Edge of Liberty podcast.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Sean.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday. What the? Damn it, it is Friday. You're watching the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. It's a special Friday. What are you doing? Get out of there. It's a special Friday edition. And I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're joining me. I missed Wednesday night. I apologize. Real life had to take over first, so I took care of some things, but I wanted to do a show tonight because there's so much to talk about this week. It's really funny because I don't intentionally share my kids to social media. I just don't want a whole bunch of other weird adults looking at them. Maybe yes, the Edge of Liberty on a Friday, Canada Heavy Haul. Jacking around with everybody, messing up everyone's internal clock. To be honest, it didn't feel like a Friday today for me, so I might as well do a show, right? Yeah, I don't share my kids on social media. I just don't agree with sharing young kids on social media. It's a thing I have in this day and age with all these weirdos that we deal with, where yeah. But I wish I could, and I will tell you why. My youngest, who's 11, going on 30, has taken to making little movies on her own that are comedy based. And she sent 2 of them tonight, and she's filming and editing them like she's learning to do it because she has fun with it, and I think it's awesome. And she's not sending them to anyone but family, so it's even funnier. But when I tell you it was 2 of the funniest movies I've seen in a long time, one of them was like a 40-second clip, the other one was like a 15-second clip. And in the second one, she's actually making fun of influencers. And I had legitimate tears rolling down my eyes from my daughter, who is not allergic to pepperoni, but based a whole comedy skit on being allergic to pepperoni. And it was unbelievably brilliant. So cheers to my daughter for doing such an awesome job. It was the funniest thing. Let's get to the chat room. You have Milepost 154. BZ himself is in the chat room. Mission Ready Men's in the chat room. O2AMT's in the chat room. And you, my friend, could be in the chat room as well. Go to SHR Media on YouTube and just click on the live button. It'll bring you right in the chat room with some of these other wonderful people. Hey, Reaver of Common Sense is in the chat room. Yeah, this is the third SHR show today. You had Lyle kicking us off at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then at 9, you had Jersey Joe. And then here at 11, you have my show, Eastern. I put it in Eastern, so I know for some reason people can't do the math. Joe struggled with it tonight, which is funny because I think he tried to go to Central Time, and then he realized I'm in Pacific Time, and then he tried to recycle it, and it happens to the best of us. A lot to talk about tonight, a ton, but I want to thank the moderators for being in the chat. O2AMT, thank you so much for being there in the chat. I thought I saw the Phantom in the chat moderating this evening. Thank you to the Phantom as well. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys for hanging out on a Friday night. It's fun. It's different. Might as well hang loose. I actually don't have a cocktail, but I might rectify that at the break because it is Friday after all. I just getting everything ready. I just did not have time to pour myself a drink, and that actually is making me sad now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to do that at the break. Let's start it off in D.C. Oh, man. Adam Schiff, God, I hate talking about Adam Schiff. Talking about Adam Schiff is almost like, it's almost like, I'm trying to think of, you ever been like food sick or maybe even drunk and you have to vomit, but you don't want to vomit, but it's going to make you feel better, so you're going to do it anyhow. That's how I feel every damn time I have to talk about Adam Schiff, because he, and I've said this before, he and Gavin Newsom are constantly fighting to see who it can be the biggest sleaze bags on the planet. People that are just completely vile, disgusting human beings. And they just go back and forth. And Adam Schiff now, apparently Gavin has had too much attention for being a douche nozzle lately. And Adam Schiff was like, how do I get that limelight back? Well, lucky for him, DNI Tulsi Gabbard revealed intercepted plans from the Ukrainian government to route hundreds of millions of American dollars back to the U.S. to boost Biden's 2024 campaign, as well as the DNC. Now, this obviously needs to be investigated, but if it's true, I and numerous other shows, not only on SHR Media, but with our friends over at KLRN and everyone, had always said how much taxpayer money is being sent overseas that's getting funneled back into the DNC coffers, especially around election times. And we were told we were conspiracy theorists. Yet again, man, I can't tell you. I really think when they use the word conspiracy theorist, to quote Princess Bride, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Because they say conspiracy theorist over and over and over again. And how many times have we been right on stuff like this? How many times? Dozens, at least dozens at this point. Going into, when we're talking about USAID, the whole USAID story, we said how much of that money is actually being funneled back in the Democrats and the left and the progressives and the trolls. Well, they'd never do that. The Democrats aren't bad people, blah, 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 blah. And now you have DNI Tulsi Gabbard said, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We're now finding stuff that says, yeah, maybe it did happen. Yeah, this needs to be investigated. It needs to be investigated properly. But here's the deal. And you and I both know, if you have half a brain in your head, if this gets prosecuted, or even if this founded to have happened and nobody gets prosecuted, the liberals, the trolls, the progressives, they're all going to turn around and say the same thing. Well, it wasn't a clean investigation because it was under Trump. Well, look, this to me was as plain as the nose on my face, this hideous thing that I have jammed right there. Those aren't conspiracy theories. This is the reality of government and all of human history. Conspiracy theories are Bigfoot and alien nonsense. Corruption is reality, and that comes from Burnt Offering 420. And I agree with you in a lot of times. This is why we wanted the books open, right? And even, I've said this before, even if we don't always necessarily get the outcome, the fact that they were opened at all is unprecedented. The fact that we've seen this much government spending is unprecedented. Do I want to see more? Yes. Does that mean that every dollar that Trump spends, do I agree with? Absolutely not. But at least they're starting to see, the people in this country are actually starting to see what government does when you don't pay attention and just blindly nod along for years and years. And I said it on this show. It's weird how much money the Democrats suddenly get over the last, 40 years? Not 20, sorry, 20 years. 40. I haven't even been drinking yet. 20. And how much of it came from and we talked about dark money, and we were told, no, you guys are crazy. That doesn't happen. That wouldn't happen. They would never do such a thing. Funds were earmarked for clean energy of all fucking Democrat scam. That alone should have been the key right there. As soon as it was marked clean energy, we should have known it was a scam. Just like the rest of the clean energy is. Of course it's a scam. You marked it. You might as well have marked it DNC illegal election money. I mean, that's seriously the worst marking for it. Clean energy. But allegedly functioned as a massive kickback scheme. Gabbard has formally asked USAID to determine if the plot was fully executed and why these intercepts captured during the Biden administration were never investigated. Well, we know why. We know why. Rhodey, I know what you're saying, but I also think that there's a lot lost in the fog when you make comments like that. Especially when it comes to Iran. And just because there's a mutual agreement that something needs to happen does not necessarily mean we're in anybody else's pocket. I've said this time and again. If anything, you could say that it was a personal vendetta because he's been talking about it for 30, 40 years with Iran. But I digress. So as if that story wasn't a big enough kind of, hey, look, the Democrats are shitty, and we know they're shitty, and there's this other potential thing to show that they're shitty. It doesn't just end there, because then it comes to everybody's friend, and by that I am incredibly being facetious, Adam Schiff, the epitome of the word penis, but not in a good way. You know what I mean? Not in a good way. You could say, this is more of a penis like the little twerp in high school who is just always annoying people. And he's not even cool enough to call him a dick. He's just a penis. He's the clinical word for it because he's just real shitty. And that's who Adam Schiff is. Gabbard is set to declassify a top secret document that former White House, former intelligence chair Adam Schiff allegedly hid in a Capitol SCIF for years. If you don't know what a SCIF is, it's where they bring, and there's a term, I forget what SCIF stands for, but it's a secured room. Secured classified intelligence foyer, maybe, where it's swept and secured, yada, yada, yada. That's where members of Congress who don't regularly access classified information are brought in a secured setting to review the information. I think leadership chairs have their own assigned SCIF, and then other ones share it. I'm not 100% on that. Schiff reportedly refused to even allow fellow members of Congress with proper clearance to view this file. Now, this is the other funny thing. Why would you hide that? What's in it that you would have to hide it in the SCIF? And look, if any other politician is doing this, it's shitty. Some of the internet are saying, no, I absolutely don't agree with that. I think there's a lot of outside money pushing that. O2AMT, sensitive compartmental intelligence facility. Thank you very much. I know I've heard the term numerous times, but I definitely didn't lock it in my brain. Thank you, O2, for letting us know. Doesn't that seem shady? Look, this is the guy who screamed Russia, Russia, Russia for years, right? He claimed he had the direct evidence of collusion for years. It was debunked by Durham and the Mueller cases, and he was censured by the House in 2023. In California, that gets you a promotion to senator to the senior house for being that much of a piece of shit. The residency scam that he allegedly has going is that he has his primary home in Maryland, D.C. area, and not in the state of California. We're also seeing this with Swalwell, right? Swalwell's, and he and his wife are allegedly renting a room in California at his friend's house, and that's how he claims residency to be running for governor, even though he does not actually live in California. That's how he's getting to it. And I'm going to talk about California being a shit show near the end of the show. I have a whole section for California lined up. But this goes to show you how even the state of California gives so much bullshit passes to people who are in the in crowd, especially in California if you're a Democrat, right? Schiff, if you don't remember, this is one of my favorite stories, so I'm going to share this. Back in, I think it was 2019, no, 2015 maybe. It was when Trump was running the first time. He said he was caught on tape with Russian DJs posing as Ukrainians who said they had naked photos of Trump and video of him being urinated on by a prostitute. 2 morning DJs, which hats off to morning DJs who pull pranks like this because it's just hysterical. 2 morning DJs convinced the intel chair that this was accurate information. So much so that he had his people following up on it. He actually had people follow up on it because he refused to accept the fact that it was a joke. And then, of course, there was the Steele dossier that we all know was absolute garbage. So when I tell you, and I talk about broken politics in this country and broken politicians and total sleazebags, you have Eric Swalwell, who I would still love to see that dossier opened up once again, just to see what was brushed under the rug and what wasn't. Because Bang Fang didn't flee the country for nothing. And now this guy's running to be governor of California, which is just, I don't think he's going to win, but that's not the point. Adam Schiff did all of these lousy things that we've proven. Not even the SCIF thing. I have yet to see that that's been proven, but the Russia, the residency scam is pretty well proven at this point. Nobody seemed to care. The Russian DJ thing is just one of my favorite stories ever because it just shows how much Trump derangement syndrome that they had, and it showed you how thirsty they were to get anything because they had nothing. Everything you know about Trump is because you know who Trump is, whether you like him or you don't like him. For the most part, everything's out in the open. Has been. The guy's been public his whole life, which should bring some question as to why certain people only sued later on when it would hurt him politically and not for the billions that they could have got from him earlier on. But that's neither here nor there. And this sums up. Do you allow Israel truths on your show? Thank you for the $2, Chris Law. What do you think is an Israel truth? Are you going to like go down this whole road about how, you know, they're controlling America and AIPAC and all that other stuff? By the way, if you haven't seen that, AIPAC website has been blown out of the water because they pick and choose who they put on it. That's been proven time and again. So it's a matter of facts versus other people's truths. I talk about this on the show a lot, facts and truth, right? Facts are black and white. You can't argue what it is. 2 + 2 is 4 is a fact, right? A truth can be anything because the last 20 years, the world has allowed it to become this thing that you can just morph into whatever you believe. There are people out there who believe that because they say they're a woman, they can have a baby. That's their quote unquote truth. So to claim something's a truth does not mean that it's fact. It's a truth to an individual does not mean it's a fact in reality. So I appreciate the $2. I appreciate the question. There's my answer. Going to the shutdown, what do I have? 12 minutes left. And the other thing I don't do, Chris, is if I'm covering a subject and just because you paid $2 doesn't mean I'm going to instantly start jumping and talking about what you want to talk about. I'll mention it in comments if I see the comment. I have comments going as well as other things that I'm citing for resources. And I actually prep my show. I don't just come on here and BS for an hour and a half and just call it a day because I hate people that do that. Let's see. Why do you think Schumer, Pelosi, all the Democrats you hate and I hate are all of a sudden being weak on Trump when it comes to Israel's Iran war? Okay, that's a valid question. And I'll respond with my opinion on this. And it's been my opinion for a while. My opinion is very, very simple. They're waiting to see what the politics of this plays out. In other words, they want to know how this action against Iran is polling, because that's what politicians do. They get money from everybody, 100%. There's a whole bunch of other Democratic quote-unquote Jewish PACs that are giving money to Democrats. So there's money flying all over D.C. I agree, that's a humongous problem. But to try to make something out of nothing and connect cobwebs, I think is a little bit crazy. However, politicians absolutely worry about one thing, politicians themselves. They always put themselves first. Very few do not. And they wait in times like this to see how it's polling, because the one thing that people in government are starting to figure out is sometimes these polls are wrong early, or people's reaction early. And if all of a sudden they push back on Trump and come to find out, say we get in there a couple months from now, the Israelis get in there, whoever gets in there, maybe they have a shitload of nuclear material in there, right? That's something that the Democrats don't want to come out against. And now all of a sudden turn around and be like, well, we were caught with our dick in our hands again, because they were just caught in our dick in their hands. Monday night, I was talking about the rocket or the missile that almost made it to Diego Garcia, right? We were told, the Democrats were told, they're not a threat to anybody outside the region. They don't have missiles that go that far. They don't have that technology. Well, clearly they do. And as Lyle said to me, Lyle Armstrong from Beer and Bullstein, one of our shows, who was in the military his entire life, said accuracy at that point is a matter of fine-tuning. So that could have hit Diego Garcia. If they want to send one to London, they can. If they want to send one to Paris, they can. It reaches all of that. But up until last week, nobody in the public talked about how that was a possibility, including the Democrats, who spent the 2 weeks before that saying, Israel can't hurt us. They're not a direct threat to us. Ramstein, Germany, all of our bases in the UK, all of our bases between here and there, they're a threat to us. Large American population strewn throughout. Yeah, now all of a sudden they're a warhead threat to us. So much so that even the UK is starting to have discussions about getting involved. So part of the thing politicians don't want to do is they already just realized that they were wrong about things, or they thought they knew about things and they didn't. And now that we're involved in it, they don't know which way to go. So when you ask why politicians are backing off of Trump, you think that has anything to do with other than them specifically and their polling and whether or not they can fundraise off of it or get elected by it? Absolutely not. That's all they give a shit about. And if you think otherwise, then you don't understand American politics lately, which, again, I will say about Trump. Like him or hate him, he does not play that game with anybody. He just does what he thinks is right. Whether you agree with it or I agree with it doesn't really matter. He thinks it's the right thing to do. And his influence is Trump. If you look at it, it's amazing to me that just a couple of years ago, they were talking about how Trump doesn't listen to anybody. He doesn't listen to his advisors. He doesn't listen to this. He doesn't listen to that. Excuse me. There it is. Hold on. But now he's suddenly brainwashed. The whole country is brainwashed. Or do you think, just maybe, it's in our vested interest in Israel being one of our most stable allies out of all the countries in the Middle East, that it helps us to get rid of Iran? Never mind, as somebody in the chat room, and I apologize, I didn't see who it was. Somebody in the chat room put, never mind the Iranian people. Yeah, you look at what the Iranian people have been dealing with and pushing with and protesting with for the last couple of years. They were ready for a change too. And this conflict goes so much beyond spamming, so much beyond all of this other stuff. Real Lady Jules, happy birthday to you. Have a great night. Right? Everyone does, they're so hyper-focused on whatever their little cause is. I hate Israel because of this and that and the other thing. And that's the only lens that I'm going to look at this war in. Israel's so smart, and our entire country is so dumb that they can trick us into a war for them. All of these things that I hear all the time on social media that absolutely can be debunked a million different ways. For starters, Trump was talking about the Iranian leadership needed to go 30 years ago. And it's been going more and more and more that he's been saying that. It's been going on right away. Secondly, as we saw with Venezuela, this hurts our biggest adversaries because they get so much oil, something like 20%? China gets 20%. China gets 20% of their oil from Iran. Then, as I said before, you look at Russia and the drones and the other munitions that they get with Iran and oil processing with Iran. So it goes well beyond it. Chris, thank you again for the $5 from Chris Law. Saddam Hussein killed over 1 million people. Gaddafi was a tyrant. Assad was a tyrant. Taliban a tyrannical. Yes. Okay. I won't argue with that. Saddam Hussein was a shitbag. Absolutely. Gaddafi, as I've talked every time I've talked, Gaddafi was a tale of two crazy dictators. The first one was one who was trying to blow up the entire world, and much like Israel, not Israel, there's everyone's going, oh, you said Israel instead. Much like Iran did, Iran funded terrorism all over the world. Libya was doing that too under Gaddafi. And then when Libya blew up, when Libya made a couple of mistakes and blowing up some wrong things, Operation El Dorado Canyon happened and Reagan put it in place. And then all of a sudden, Gaddafi was quiet for a long time. He showed up in New York City and he made some sort of crazy. Remember, he rented all of Central Park out and put up all of his tents. And then he went on that crazy, absolutely long, insane speech at the UN. But other than that, at that point, I think he realized the gig was up and he was going to keep dying, or he was going to die. Hold on. Chris, it most certainly hurts Russia. If you pay attention, the amount of munitions and drones that they get, the technology they're using, a lot of it's coming from Iran. So Gaddafi absolutely was a screwball. And then when Gaddafi was at his least vicious and Libya was the most stable, the Obama administration then tried to run him out. Assad was a tyrant, and Assad was actually the target that the Obama administration was going for, because they were running guns through Libya, which is why they destabilized it, to the Free Syrian Army. And the Taliban's a piece of shit. Russia's actually going through the strait. They were going through the strait anyhow. That doesn't change. Like, I understand what you're saying, but no. Russia was an ally with Iran. Russia gets a lot of their drone technology from Iran. It will hurt their cause on the UK. So, anywho, wow, I went off on a rant there. That wasn't even what I was planning on. I ended up in the Middle East. I planned my show tonight, Chris. And I appreciate your support, man. And I appreciate you being a gentleman. I talked about this Monday night. Look, it's okay if you and I don't agree. That's totally cool. If you keep having conversation like that, where you're actually articulating your point and you're talking about it, you're welcome all the time, man. And you don't always have to get $2 for me to read your comment. Or seriously, I don't mind having positive discourse with somebody that I disagree with. I think it's awesome. And I really appreciate you not just being a troll. And I appreciate all the listeners who aren't just trolls that come into our chat, because the trolls are just annoying. You know, they're all the same thing. You know, Orange Man bad, blah, 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 blah. But they never have a point to make, and they never have a conversational aspect to their trolling. It's just bullshit trolls. But you, Chris Law, were not that. And I definitely appreciate that. I am against a break. I hope you guys can hang out for 2 minutes after the break. I'll be back and we can pick this up. I do want to talk a little bit about the shutdown. Do I get that now? $10, Chris Law. I've derailed your show enough. You deserve the super chat. I monitor a massive mega channel. I'd love to chat and debate. Yeah, dude, you did not have to do that, Chris. That was $10. It was so nice, but so unneeded. I will tell you that as a host, and I don't always take comments. Sometimes if I have a lot in my show and I have it packed up and ready to go, then I do focus on my show and I don't get derailed. But tonight's not my usual night, and it's a fun night, so I had no problem talking with you, brother. The fact that, like I said, you actually came in here and spoke like a gentleman. You came in here and said, hey, here's why I disagree with you, X, Y, and Z, and here's my angle. Dude, all day long. You're welcome every day, all day. And I really do appreciate that, because you know what? If people like you and I could do this on a regular basis, a lot more things would get solved. And the country would be, the world would be in a lot better place. One of the reasons you're freaking awesome. Thank you, Jules. I appreciate that. I'm going to take a break. I swear I'm going to take a break. And then I come back and pick up on my show, not the me and Chris Law show. which was honestly a blast. I'm just giving you a hard time, pal. I really appreciate you being here. I'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the SHR Media Shop. This is not just merch, it is a statement. SHR Media is built as a rebellion against the mainstream. We deliver truth without a filter or permission. When you wear our gear, you are standing for liberty and unapologetic free thought. Every piece is a badge of support for independent journalism. Wear it loud, wear it proud. Support the mission and join the rebellion at the SHR Media web store.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Welcome to the Reaver of Common Sense, where we cut through the noise of news and politics with a sharp edge. Tune in every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a refreshing dose of reality. We fearlessly tackle the tough topics with no nonsense, just pure common sense. Visit shrmedia.com to discover where you can catch the Reaver in action. He is here to amplify your inner logic. He may not always be polite. He may not always be refined. But one thing is for sure, he always tells it like it is. The Reaver of Common Sense.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Edge of Liberty right in the SHR Media Network. Liquor Store Dinosaur. We just need discourse, he says. I agree with you, Liquor Store Dinosaur, 100%. Real Lady Jewel says that's awesome, Chris. Getting the love from the chat room, Chris. So thank you, Mission Ready Men. Talking about me, said, he's okay. Yeah, he knows me probably better than most people, so he can say that. And then again, this is the stuff that I appreciate. You guys seem like cool community, abortion guns aside. I'm more liberal, but I have sort of operated in the mega world for the past year. But Chris, and this is, I have no problem talking about stuff like this. EOD says you're more than welcome. Of course you are, sir. And you don't need to shut up. You can chat as much as you want. If I'm reading something and I don't see it, I apologize. That's just the way shows go. But I will tell you, from all the hosts on our network and other networks, when you say like, oh, you guys seem like cool community, abortion and gun aside, once you say abortions and gun aside, like, okay, so we do have some common ground, right? So now we have a reason to interact in a positive way. We can't hate each other because we agree on some things. We don't have to agree on anything to like each other or get along with each other. I have plenty of friends from the other side of the aisle. But what I do appreciate is engaging in this positive way, in this way that's fun. That's fun for me. That's fun, and it's actually constructive. So thank you. TSA shutdown. I swear I'm going to get back to my show. We're 42 days of this partial shutdown. The Senate passed a bill last night, but the House refused to finalize it because it stripped funding for ICE and Border Control. Congress is now on a break. We all knew this was going to happen. We all knew the bill that was passed last night was not the bill at Americans First. Yes, sir. Even the ones I don't agree with, I agree with that comment, Chris. Thank you. Boom. Going right up. And here's the issue with this. And the one thing the Democrats don't want to talk about with the shutdown is ICE and CBP and Border Patrol are funded for the next couple of years anyhow. So they're trying to strip it out. I saw Jersey Joe played a clip, and I don't know which wingnut it was, some politician who was like shocked to find out that ICE's job is to deport people. Now, how they deport them, yeah, I know there are people who are upset about that, but that is their job and that's their function, and that function needs to exist for as long as we're a nation on one level or another, right? That's just their job. That's what we need that, and the founders knew that too. You can go to shrmedia.com. If you look up immigration, Jersey Joe did an unbelievable piece a long time ago that explains the history of what our founders thought about immigration and whatnot. So they're still trying to like stop that, but here's the thing, and it's like open borders under Biden. When Biden unsecured the borders and you let 10, 15, however many million people the number is finally agreed upon. I know it's different depending on where you talk to people. That was done for political gain. That wasn't done because they gave a rat's ass about anybody who was coming over that border. They just wanted the redistricting. That's why the open borders were allowed. Because if it was actually care and compassion, they knew those surges to the borders were coming and they would have been prepared for it, but they were not. Right? So they didn't care the outcome. They didn't care what any of those people did once they got on the border. They didn't care who was in that group of people or all of those groups of people. The caravans, as they called them to make them sound nice. I still call it an invasion, even if it wasn't a uniformed invasion. So the problem with that is, inside of the good people who were in there, yes, we agree there are good human beings that were in the caravans. Look at the number of SIA, special interest aliens, that were in those as well. Look at the amount of felons and people that were absolutely, oh, that was Jason Crow. Thank you. I think that was Reaver. Jason Crow didn't realize what ICE does. And they didn't care about any of that. They didn't care about any of the people. They just wanted them over the border because it helps them politically in their mind. I said earlier, everything the politicians do, you have to look at it as what's best for that politician. So then you get to this shutdown, this partial shutdown that we're in. And I'm going to go on. Into the shutdown. I'm going to read what Chris said in a second because I absolutely. Because he said something that a lot of people on the left wouldn't dare say. So I do want to talk about that. But anyhow, so you have this point now where they're trying to defund ICE and they're trying to defund Border Patrol, that they're already funded for the next 2 years. So what is their gain right now? And the answer is politics. We saw last week the CNN numbers that among Democrats, Democratic voters, the Democrats are down 50% or something like that. They're reeling right now, and they don't know. And I said this 6 months ago. The Democrats are a ship without a rudder or anybody trying to steer the ship. They're just bouncing off rocks and hoping one of them is going to be soft land at some point, which I'm fine with. I think the Democrats are atrocious as a party. However, that's where they are right now. And much like I said earlier to the guy who was talking about Israel, well, maybe that was you, Chris. I don't remember. No, I think it was somebody else. But what I said earlier is the Democrats haven't gone hard on Trump and Iran because some of them are pushing back, but because they're waiting for the polls to shade out, and the same thing's going on here. It's all polls based. So this is all an act. And Trump turned around. He signed an executive order today that's going to start paying the TSA workers immediately, using an emergency on the shortage to bypass it. And the officers should be back paid by Monday. But yeah, Democrats gained nothing from this. They need me. They do. Chris said, from my perspective, and I'm certainly not an open borders guy, there was a pretty glaring dichotomy on how Tom Homan, good, approached Minnesota and Greg Bovino, bad, approached it. I will add this to that comment. I don't necessarily think Bovino was necessarily bad, as you said, but I understand your perspective. If the state of Minnesota and the counties agreed, like they did when Homan showed up, to just turn over people that were in custody that had deportation orders and detainers, then Bovino wouldn't have had to have done what he did, because his people would have been so busy processing from the jails that they wouldn't have been out in the street. So you're playing chicken and egg, but I say that the onus falls on the local government there. Another chatter in the show, Matthew Lewis. Democrats only want ICE to stop breaking the law with their excessive and unconstitutional crimes. That's not even true. Nothing is unconstitutional, and if you say they are, you don't know the law. I hate that you and I look alike because of blowhards like everyone thinks I have your opinion. I need to lose my chin fat before you do, and that was the guy who won't put his picture up. So that's adorable. Oh, Chase, you're so cute. I love it when you guys come in here and think you're hurting my feelings. Guess what? I'm also bald too. I don't know if that makes you feel strong to say something bald, but I know you'd never say it to my face because you can't get out of mom's basement, you sad piece of shit. Let's go to California. I wonder if I may share some perspective as a lawyer directly on the ICE point. Why don't we talk, Chris, 2 Against Tyranny on X, if you have X. Why don't you send me a DM and maybe we'll just have you on one night, and I'll finish up my show tonight and we can go round and round and have you on. That would be fantastic, actually. I have no problem with that. Number 2, Against Tyranny or SHR Media on X. Send us the message and we will 100% hook up and start talking, because I'll share that perspective with you and I'll share that conversation with you. Hands down, bud. Let's see. Let's talk about what's going on in Riverside, California, the ballot seizures. Now, Sheriff Bianco, who I have my issues with, he's running for governor. Yes, absolutely. I can understand why people immediately like, oh, this is political. Yeah. If one of the boys from from SHR is in the chat, could you send Chris one of the emails to reach out to me, just so I don't have to type while I'm talking? That faster. Dems just won in Trump's district. That doesn't. So what? It happens that stuff happens all the time, which shows even his neighbors, a majority of voters, the district looks like Trump. Dems will regain. Blah blah blah. No, it has to do with who moves in and who moves out more than anything else. Here's a little hint: the independents are the only thing that either party fights for, Matthew. And it also has to do with who moves in and who moves out. And some districts change left and right every single election. So that doesn't mean anything. You're hoping that will happen, but don't be upset when it doesn't about the midterms. So Sheriff Bianco sees 650,000 physical ballots from the November 2025 special election on Prop 50. A citizens group found that 611,000 ballots logged out of 657,000 votes certified, an excess vote discrepancy of 45,000 votes. Now, we've seen this in other districts before. We've seen this in other parts of the country where they have elections, in local elections too. It's very North Korea-esque, right? I think Kim Jong-un won North Korea a couple weeks ago with 115% or something like that, and some districts voted up to 180%. But it is shocking, and it does make you start to ask why. Why is it possible for there to be more votes than there are votes certified? AG Rob Bonta, sorry, it's just what I think of the guy, tried to block the recount via emergency petition. The court denied Bonta, allowing Bianco's fact-finding mission to continue. And he sees more votes today, and Bonta was just as upset about it, called it illegal, but of course the judges already okayed it once, so he's going to okay it again, and they know that. And it's really interesting because we've talked about election integrity. Look, with the SAVE Act going on right now, the whole conversation about the SAVE Act going on right now, and you have districts in California with over 45,000 excessive votes. And when we start talking about the SAVE Act, these are questions I want you to actually think about. Please. Chris, one of the guys that I work with who's on the network, who are in the chat, I think we'll send you my email, and that'll be cool, brother. I didn't want you to think I forgot about you. I'm paying attention a little bit, but I'm looking at my notes. So we start talking about the SAVE Act. We start talking about issues like this starting to pop up, where you turn around and you say, how is it possible? How is it possible to have that many votes certified, but that many votes physically cast? Doesn't make sense. And it could have something to do with this next study that's also out of California. Yeah, that's totally cool, Chris. You can absolutely do that, my friend. Those emails both are good. A new Bay Area Council study show that in the city of San Francisco alone, there are 477,000 illegal workers. I want you to think about that number for a second. I meant to pull this. The population of San Francisco, I want to say it's 2 million. I could be wrong. I know it's not far from where I'm sitting right now, but that doesn't mean I know what the population is. I can't get everything all the time, guys. Okay, it's even worse than I thought. It's 827,526. So roughly half the people working in San Francisco, half the population that goes to work in San Francisco is illegal. You have 870-something thousand people and 477,000 illegal workers in your city. That's just one city in San Francisco, in California. One. Talk about the borders earlier. We talk about ICE now. The argument of, well, Americans don't want to do those jobs does go out the window, because if companies know they can charge less, they will charge less to, or pay less rather, and use illegals. 477,000. Think about how many small cities that is. That's an insane number. 82% of the Bay Area maids are immigrants. 39% are undocumented, and that's just what's being reported. And local leaders use these numbers to claim the economy would collapse without them, which, of course, goes against the rule of law. And again, the Democrats somehow seem to consistently love their slave labor. And they have zero problem importing them to do jobs that they, quote unquote, Americans don't want to do. And then when you start calling them out on it, they defend it. Well, if we get rid of them, the economy is going to collapse. Look, we're in California. The economy's already collapsed. The economy has already collapsed. That's why we're going to be billions in a deficit in California. The economy's already collapsed because they've overspent. They've overtaxed. The tax base is leaving, and they keep spending money hand over fist. It's not hard to figure out why California is out of money. So let it collapse at this point. I mean, fourth largest economy. Newsom loves to say that. Fourth largest economy in the world. Yeah, and you're also billions of dollars in debt. So how's that working out for you? At what point do politicians, by and large, say we need to open the books? As a matter of fact, in California, people sued to try to open the books, and the leadership here try to stop it. Pardon me, I have no idea why I'm talking like that. Another story in California, right up the road from me yet again. This is in San Francisco. Just at the beginning of COVID, I don't know if you remember when there was an elderly man, Vika Ratanapakadi, who's 84 years old, was out on a walk in January 2021. And some screwball came and absolutely bludgeoned him to the ground and killed him. A jury found the suspect, his name was Antonin Watson, 24, guilty of the murder. Involuntary manslaughter? Okay. But Judge Linda Koufax sentenced Antoine Watson to 8 years and ordered his immediate release on probation after serving 5 years in jail. He was guilty of assault and involuntary manslaughter. He took a grandfather away from the family, and he did 5 years for it. And not even 5 years in prison, because in California, while you're waiting for trial, you're in county jail, which is a little bit nicer than prison. And this judge, Linda Koufax, 100% just said, fuck you to the family, just 100% fuck you to society, and now let this guy out on probation. especially in the day and age where we're seeing so many people who are being released early or without bail or whatever reoffend shortly in horrific manners. This is just one more problem with the state of California. Just one of many. Chris has been a good lad all night, so I'm going to re-answer. Democratic approval being low is slightly deceptive. Democrats are historically more critical of their own, though not always as much as now. 100% of MAGA approving of Trump. Not saying 100% of MAGA approves of Trump, but here's the difference with that, Chris. And you see this with Fetterman and the Democrats right now. So we can disagree with people in our party, but agree, like, if they're overall doing what we wanted them to do, then okay. I disagree with Trump. I've disagreed with Trump numerous times on this show. But overall, he's doing what I elected him to do, and I'm okay with that. Democrats elect somebody like Fetterman, and then when he says a couple things they disapprove of, they're calling for his head literally. And that's the difference. And I think that's the progressive now in the Democrats. I don't think that's your traditional Democrat, which I think you are. I think you're more of a central, not central, that's not fair, a more traditional liberal versus a progressive Democrat. Yeah, Tony Bart in the chat room says judges should be held accountable for the monsters that they released. It used to seem, Tony, in the past, it was a one-off affair, right? The judges knew who to release, and I'm sure they didn't always get it right on going both sides of the aisle, so to speak. But they knew certain people had to be held, and they held them. Even your most liberal judge back in the day was like, no, this guy's kind of an asshole, so we're going to hold on to him. And now, because of this weird performative actions from the bench by a lot of judges, where they're trying to show how hip and woke they are, they're releasing these people. It's this new age of law that they're trying to usher in, where nobody's ever held accountable, nobody blah, 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 blah. And we're going to release everyone to show how incredibly woke we are, and it's not going to turn out well. And I would bet vital parts of my anatomy that this guy who murdered this 82-year-old grandfather is probably going to reoffend again. Just call it a hunch. Call it a hunch. His family was truthfully upset. Okay. I love how Chris has become the producer that pays me to look up topics. No, this is Jeffrey Mackey. I think I know this story. Hold on. Yes. Yep. This is that story that I thought about, and you're right. The court uncovered a key factor. Were charged with murders in 2024. Nieves pleaded down to one count of manslaughter. She was sentenced to 11 years. Mackey guilty on 2 counts, second degree murder. Charges 15 to life, maximum of 25 to life. But in 2026, Mackey was sentenced to 11 years on each count. Yeah, no, it's an issue with bail reform. And Chris, I don't know what kind of law you practice, but if it's criminal, you're making out financially. But you see this. You are a criminal defense attorney. Ladies and gentlemen, when I tell you, and I've said it on this show before, even criminal defense attorneys that I know are against this, you now have one in the room who is agreeing with it. I don't even know what to say. I feel validated for once in my life. Daniel Mercury running knows all too well it needs to be done to get rid of these judges. Time to clean up and bring justice. Vote for Daniel Mercury, said Jules. I will let that one slide because I normally don't share political endorsement posts on here, but I'll let that one slide. It is batshit crazy, Chris. And this is the problem that this is where I'll tell you, like, many on the left and the woke have lost the rest of the country. And Bill Maher talks about this a lot, and a lot of other people talk about this too. When you start feeding into this insanity and you start going against the rule of law and you start saying it's okay that some people commit these horrific crimes, because of X, Y, and Z, and you give all of these reasons, or you take away bail because some people don't have money. Look, if you don't have enough money, sorry, that's how it works, right? When you get a bail, that's a promise to appear later in court. That says, I'm giving up this money for my freedom now, and I promise to make all of my cases, because if I don't, I lose this money, which is why people get high bail in some situations and other get low bail. Drinking in public, it might be $40 or whatever the minimum is. I know it used to be $40 in the city that I worked in, only because I helped process prisoners out, not because I got hooked for it. But you start looking at this and you say, well, no cashless bail. Well, who's going to show up for that? Well, now you not only these people going to be out more and more, and they're going to potentially reoffend, but now the amount of resources it takes to go rearrest these people when the warrants get dropped for defaults for failing to appear as recognized, right, or for recognizance, you now have a potential arrest that you're intentionally adding to the community that could go sideways, because that second time that guy gets arrested, he knows he's got a warrant. Guess what he might do? He's going to fight. And now the community is endangered even more, even if they don't reoffend. And yeah, I know I worked in law enforcement for a long time. Usually if you get picked up on something silly, you get the processing fee of $20-$40 depending on where you are, and you're out the door. They hold you for 24 hours and kick you out. Most of the time too, a lot of people don't realize is, if you don't have enough money to make bail, you're usually in court the next day. And unless you have some heinous records in real life, not in New York and other places that are pulling this shit, unless you have some ridiculous records and you stole a pack of gum or some candy or a bottle of booze from a liquor store, they're going to let you out the door anyhow on personal. They're going to cut you loose, and you don't even have to pay the fee at that point. They just cut you loose after your arraignment, tell you to come back, blah, 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 blah. So I'm glad that Chris Law showed up in the chat room tonight. I'm glad for all of my chatters. Real Lady Jewel was in there, even Matthew earlier, Jack Boozer, Tony. I can go on and on. Reverb Common Sense, the moderators, of course, O2AMT, and the Phantom, and the boys at SHR. I appreciate all of you folks being here this evening. Oh, yeah, no. If you have ties to the area, and it's funny, too, because what a lot of people don't know, if you're the quote-unquote town drunk, if you keep getting locked up for drinking in public, or you keep getting locked up for stealing a bottle of booze, and they know you're not going anywhere, odds are you can do that 100 times and you'll never get charged for bail once, because they're like, no, this guy's not going anywhere. He doesn't want to go anywhere. It doesn't matter how many times he gets arrested. He keeps coming back. He loves it here, as a matter of fact, and it's worth it. And a lot of them, 100% know to commit a crime and walk slowly because dinner's served at 6, or it's going to be raining. I work law enforcement in Boston. We're going to have a snowstorm. The amount of, and Big E can back me up on this, Mission Ready Men, a lot of guys that would try to commit petty theft and other silly little crimes in order to get hooked for the night, so they got in out of the cold, was crazy, because they didn't want to sober up and go to any of the shelters that always had room. Pine Street Inn always had room, but the only rule was you had to be sober to go in for the night, and they didn't want to do that. So they'd go out, they'd steal their bottle of booze, they would chug it, so they would chug it before you got there, and usually they were just waiting for you. It was the funniest thing that I'd seen numerous times, because it's just like, oh, look, it's Walter. Walter knows it's supposed to snow tonight. Walter wants a place to live for the night, and he doesn't want to be sober enough to go into the shelters. So Walter went in and got a bottle of pop-off vodka off the counter and walked out the front door and just chugged it and waited for the cops to show up, essentially. And that's how it works. So I agree with you. The whole cashless bail system, the whole soft on crime thing is absolutely BS. And it's absolutely a detriment to our system, because when you have real crime like this that needs to be addressed, where people need to be punished, and you have actual victims who are now suffering, that becomes as important in the case. And unfortunately, this day and age, it seems like the victims and their families are no longer considered all that important in some districts. Folks, that's my hour. That's it for me. Thank you so much for talking this evening. Chris, thank you for talking. Mission Ready Men, you know. I was waiting for you to pipe in. Chris is out of the Western Mass area, so we're going to share an accent, which is even funnier. So when he comes on the show, we can just sit there and make fun of each other. I'll be back Monday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, right here on the SHR Media Network every Monday and Wednesday night. But it's not just me. Monday and Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. You have the Reverb Common Sense with Jersey Joe. Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. You have the Bulbous One, BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and I did this all out of whack, so you'll have to excuse me. Friday night, and I'm still sober. This is not working out well for me. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon on the East Coast. You have Mission Ready Men with Big E. And then the last guy who just paid $1 to see the beautiful balding, EOD operator in chat, but that's Lyle Armstrong. He's the host of Beer and Bullstein on Friday and Saturday nights right here in SHR Media, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 on the East Coast. And then on Sundays, the Lost Wanderer makes an appearance at 5 p.m. Pacific whenever he wants to. So you don't have to bet on it, but when it's there, you better check it out. Go to shrmedia.com for more information. You can also get some of our shirts, some of our awesome swag that's over there. Our memberships are open if you want to become a member. We absolutely encourage that and appreciate that. And most importantly, have a great weekend and enjoy and be safe. Talk to you on Monday.